Really talking shit about us being late right now?
No, talking to Justin, and Justin's working. He's like, I have customers in the shop, so I can't listen, but I can talk to you guys. I'm like, wait, you shouldn't be able to talk either if you have customers in there, but okay. Thanks, Justin. I like your priorities.
He also has the coolest job ever. Yes. Besides.
Also, now this is an intro to our show. That's great, guys. Hey.
There you go.
What's up? Starting off the show talking about Justin.
And Justin has 2 podcasts now.
Yeah, I know.
He has double the amount of podcasts we have.
Is Ian rubbing off on him?
He's
just being an overachiever.
Superpowers? I don't know. But welcome to From the Ground Up podcast. And if you guys didn't know, we do have a Patreon page. So we'd like to thank everyone who has supported us on our Patreon page and has basically enabled us to cover the cost of having the show up, which is pretty sweet. So, sorry, what were you going to say?
Okay. Also, we obviously have a website, and it's somehow by global freaking, it has become very warm. It's called global freaking. That's
it's gonna get cold again, but
because it means really warm, really cold, colds. But it has become cold or warm again recently here in Philadelphia. So if you want one of our steaks, please buy it quickly so we can send it to you, because like in 2 weeks it's supposed to snow for like 4 days straight. So
there's going to be a small shipping window coming up.
But there's a lot of snakes we still came home with after the Oaks Reptile Show. So if you're interested, they are on the website. I don't think we updated our website, but most.
Oh yeah, we did sell some snakes that I didn't update on the website.
So 1 or 2 may not be available, but most of them are still available.
So go buy snakes, but don't
buy the ones we sold.
Snakes. Yeah, which you don't know which one it is. So actually, I didn't list either of those. So we're actually good. Because those were going to be holdbacks, and then
we ended up, of course, the ones we sold at the show were 2 holdbacks that we changed.
Yeah, we've had snakes that we like struggled to sell forever, and then I bring out the 2 holdbacks, and they sell immediately, and that's the only snakes we sell. Show.
Cool.
So that's the way that goes.
Great intro, but check out our Patreon, check out our website. As usual, shirts available. If anyone has a White Plains connection, we're trying to vend at White Plains this weekend. Just putting that out there.
We're putting stuff out there like that.
Putting it out there. Hopefully
if anyone wants to share a table, give a dog a bone.
Our 11 corn snakes. That's all.
Yeah, don't worry. We just need 11 deli cup spaces. But yeah, that would be sweet. Otherwise, I don't know if we'll be going to that. We may be going to the Hamburg one, but as far as just going to stuff. And other than that,
if you're in the New York area, the White is this weekend on Sunday, and then Hamburg is the 23rd, I believe, coming up.
And we are in no way affiliated with either of those shows.
And we are no way good at making short intros. But today on the podcast, we have Colin Langenderfer
of Crosstown Exotics.
Yes.
So Colin, first of all, thank you so much for coming on, and just give us a little intro of what you do over there.
At Crosstown Exotics, we're a traveling reptile show, and we're also a traveling bug show in the Chicagoland area. So we travel around and educate our audiences about our animals.
Awesome. So what kind of got you interested in reptiles in general?
In general, it was one of the first animals I was really exposed to growing up. Because again, like everyone, it's the easiest thing to be catching in your backyards if you've got an interest in animals. So it was catching toads and garter snakes and whatnot. And then early on, I realized that I was allergic to anything with fur. So that just pretty much chose my course in which animals I was going to pursue. So, which was kind of sad because I love my bunny Snowball, but we definitely needed to get rid of the animal. So,
wow, that's pretty crazy. So you weren't allergic just to like shedding fur, like you were allergic as well as like rabbits and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it's like I didn't know I was allergic to marsupials until I was hugging a kangaroo, and that was awkward because then I had to go run and get Benadryl somewhere. I was out in the middle of in a rural area, so I'm like, oh, great, this is awesome. But yeah, no, most shedding animals I'm allergic to. So it's gotten better as I've gotten older, but pretty much anything with fur.
So how'd you get to hugging a kangaroo?
I know a lot of different people that have a lot of different animals. And so when you have friends that have kangaroos, you say, can I come over and hug it? So,
Yeah, there was this like meme-ish type thing going around of like what states you can have a kangaroo on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that, but people have been sharing it.
Oh, I didn't know. I have not even seen that. No.
Yeah, for some reason people have been sharing it because people are amazed. I think you can keep kangaroos at all, but there's plenty of states that you can keep them with no questions asked.
Yeah, Missouri, I think for sure. There's that big exotics, there's like a big exotic mammal show down there. I think it's like southern Missouri, but you can buy a bunch of crazy stuff there. So I know my buddy bought a wallaby, but that wasn't the same, marsupial that I got to hug. So.
Okay. So can we keep one here? Is it legal?
You need a permit in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think in Illinois you do need one. I guess I didn't ask. I was just so excited that they had one, so I just hugged it. Didn't really ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's not your responsibility at that point. I mean,
right.
But so what kind of got you started in reptiles? Kind of was it the keeping aspect, and what did you keep first?
It was So reptiles, I was actually scared of reptiles in the beginning, like snakes. I watched Jungle Book too many times, and I was under the impression that they were going to, or the impression that they were going to hypnotize me. And so when I got my first snake, which is an albino corn snake, I was like afraid to sleep in the same room as it. I was like, and this is when I was like 18 years. No, I'm joking. I was like 5 years old when I got my first snake. And it took me a while to start holding it and interacting with it. But once I did and got over the whole like feeding it live animals aspect and stuff, I was pretty much hooked from there. But yeah, into the educational field in general, I was very interested in these animals, and there was a guy teaching classes at the Chicago Reptile House, which is Brian Potter's shop. And he was teaching these classes, and he'd take kids field herping and stuff. And I eventually started working for this guy who did educational shows, and he had a pretty great variety of animals, from different crocodilian to monitor lizards and big snakes and stuff that I got to work with from a young age. And yeah, I guess having that experience pretty much just got me hooked on seeing everything that you can work with in this field.
So I know that, I mean, Chicago is a big reptile area in general. I mean, you have obviously the East Coast where we are, Philly, New York, all that stuff. You have Florida, you have California, like those are, and Texas, of course, hot spots. But it seems like Chicago has a very big reptile scene as well. Yeah,
it's surprisingly. I mean, it's just really random for us to have that big of a hub. You'd think, more of the warmer climates would have just as big of a following, but it's almost unreal how many people you have here. I mean, with the amount of breeders you have, the amount of educators. I mean, I could name 12 strictly reptile educators here in the Chicagoland area that do this like full time. It's ridiculous, but it's also awesome too, because then you just have tons more friends. So.
Yeah, that's great. I don't even know one in Philly, and I kind of looked it up, and I didn't really find anyone that seemed that substantial. So, yeah. I mean, are you full-time in this?
No, gosh, no. It's not because I don't want to be. It's more of it's a lot to do with just the stability of it. I don't really want to have to rely on shows to get by. Because again, I don't want to start resenting my passion. Not to say that eventually I wouldn't love to, but as of right now, I feel like it's just a perfect, side career, I guess. And I'm just happy with that. Yeah.
And what kind of animals do you typically bring out to these shows?
We try to bring animals that you wouldn't find at like Petco or PetSmart. So, we do bring our staple animals, which are like obviously we have a big Burmese python. We've got a African spurred-thighed tortoise or sulcata. We bring like a big green iguana, and let's say what's another staple, like a pixie frog, like an African giant bullfrog. But then we try to incorporate a couple other, different animals you wouldn't normally see. Like we have our green anacondas, Nebula and Gamora. We have a rhino iguana named Kumba. We have Marty, the monkey-tailed skink. We've got Drax, you'll see a Guardians of the Galaxy theme going on. But Drax, our caiman lizard. We've got smooth-sided toads, and then we incorporate inverts too. So we normally bring our hissing cockroaches, flat rock scorpions, vinegaroons, different things like that. So, and our alligator snapping turtle, Rocco.
I think you're gonna need to educate Melissa because she just made a wincy face at the cockroach.
What do you mean?
How do you get people over their fears of
It's
cockroaches
not
and
about
stuff like that?
education.
It's so we.
Knowing more about it isn't going to make me less grossed out.
I guess everyone kind of has their tactics of it, but with us, I think just the way that we present ourselves and the way that we handle ourselves, people are like, all right, well, if this guy's being nice and calm and not afraid of this animal, then they're okay with it. Now, when we do give these animals to audience members, we generally like to hold someone's wrist prior to giving this animal to them, because when they put it in their hand, they generally like to catapult it right behind them. So we're like, hey, not that we don't trust you, but we're going to hold your wrist first before we give you the full reins of holding this bug, because it has happened before where we've had people try and flinch with it, and we've heard horror stories in the past of just obliterated cockroaches. So but again, when people see it, it's very intimidating, but once you have it in your hand, it just looks like a big roly-poly. I mean, they're not, they don't bite. They do have hooks on their fingers, so it does feel a little creepy at first. That was me, sorry. But other than that, yeah, I mean, most people don't have too big of an issue with it.
Total hypocrite, because I preach this about snakes, like, hey, it's not that, but I have total, what is it called? I think it's like bladdodophobia.
I think you're maybe making that up.
Google
I'll go with it. Yeah, bladdodophobia for sure.
Fear of bladders.
Yeah.
Fear of cockroach. I mean, you hold it in your hand, again, doesn't do anything for me. I will not touch it. The fact that I'm not, me, when we first started dating, if it's in the room, I'd start crying, like immediate tears.
Yeah, my girlfriend's the same way. She's not about those, and that's so. The company Crosstown Exotics is run with my best friend Mike Levins, and he does all of the inverts. So when my girlfriend and I first started talking, she was like, "You don't have any bugs?" I'm like, "No, that's all at Mike's house. That's why he doesn't have a girlfriend." But
if he did bugs, we would not be dating. No way.
The funny thing is, Mike is an exterminator, so he keeps bugs at his house, and he loves them with a passion, and during the day he kills them. So but that's always a big laugh at our shows. But but he's really good at what he does, and he keeps so many different species. He's got isopod colonies and cockroach colonies, and we've got those Goliath bird-eating tarantulas. What else do we have? Just a bunch of crazy cool stuff. I mean, our bug show is growing, and it's something we're really proud of, because again, you normally don't see a traveling bug show. I think when I first thought of it, I was like those little ant circuses, like that kind of travel, or the flea circus, or whatever you're talking about. But no, kids really get into it, so we're happy we get to kind of educate people on that stuff.
Yeah,
that is true. Most educational reptile things, there's not bugs included.
Or almost no one has positive exposure, I guess, with a bug. I mean, that's the problem. Every time you see a bug, someone's freaking out. So, right. Which I guess is pretty similar with snakes, but I mean, we're so used to snakes that we kind of forget about it.
Yeah, that's true.
If you removed every bug from this planet, I'd be totally fine with it.
Well, this planet would not sustain itself.
No matter the consequences.
Right.
No matter how fucked up everything would be.
Well, a lot of the animals that we love eat the bugs, so they're good to have around. But so as far as reptiles, so obviously you're keeping the reptile side of it. So do you have a reptile room? Kind of, how do you keep so many different animals?
Yeah, so the reptile room is in our third car garage. So it just takes up the whole third car garage, and it houses a little under 100 or so reptiles in there. Obviously ranging from the Burmese pythons and sulcatas to, all those stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot especially you have some things that take up some space.
Right, and my bedroom too. That's where most of the iguanas stay. So, and plus they're the most sociable. I mean, the monitors are very sociable too. And I mean, not to say everything else isn't sociable, but the iguana is like my, big green iguana and my rhino iguana, and I've got a red and a blue and a cayman brack iguana, but all of them just love hanging out. It's ridiculous. Like I guess the reptiles get that stigma of not having like a personality, but like it almost like wrenches at your heart. You're like, oh my God, like this thing is just as sociable as a dog. I mean, it's really interesting to see that, but my iguana loves sitting on my bed. He just sits there. He's potty trained. Anytime he needs to use a restroom, he walks to the kitchen. He walks to the bathroom and climbs in the tub, and he goes to the bathroom right in the tub.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. So explain to us how that happens. Yeah.
So when I first got Zoe is his name.
It's a him.
It's a him, but the people that owned him before me, I know, right? Don't assume. But right. But the owners before had thought that Zoe was a girl, and Zoe responds to his name. So I didn't want to change his name, but I was like, hey, Zoe's actually a boy. And they're like, what? No. I was like, no, he's got a huge dewlap. His jaws are, he's got big jowls. So, and he's also got spurs. So, I mean, this is definitely a boy.
How did they mistake that?
Well, they weren't reptile keepers before. So they had him for about 9 years. He had a little bit of a vitamin B deficiency, and he was showing a little bit of like neurological signs where his like feet kind of twitched a little bit. But other than that, he was like the perfect specimen, perfect spines along his back. He was absolutely gorgeous. And unfortunately, he was just the former owner was going out on an internship that was going to take him out of the country, and he just wanted a good place for it to go. So, but they taught him. Oh, go ahead.
Yes. You said it has spurs. That's what they're called on the coast. Are they not like?
Well, I guess you wouldn't know what they are if you don't know what you're looking for.
They look like little dots. They're femoral spores. Some of them are, I guess, depending on the species. Some of them have like really long femoral spurs or spores. But they're just right along the inner thighs of lizards.
Gotcha. So he just didn't know.
He just didn't know. No, and I don't think he really cared to know. I think he was just like, you're Zoe and you're my lizard. So, but yeah, he decked out his room with like a little catwalk shelving unit around the top of his room. He like had to take down his drapes because they kept on falling down. But like it was basically outfitted to have an iguana live in his bedroom. It was really cool. And so at my house, I'm like, well, I have also got terrapins in my room, terrapins and pink-bellied side necks. So I was like, yeah, I don't want him taking a dip in there or knocking the lamp in there. So during the day, he sits in like a 6x3, 6x4 foot vision cage. And then when I come home, I just let him out and he does his thing. So, but back to the potty training, they trained him since he was free roaming that when he was supposed to go to the bathroom in the shower. And I've always heard of this, and I never believed it up until Zoe. And I was like, no way. Now, if I don't get there before my mom does, I mean, she's just like, dude, there's a huge iguana turd in the shower. Like, you got to take care of that. But really, it's the most hygienic way of keeping a lizard. So if you can do that, do it, because it's awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy. So obviously the green iguanas, especially males, get a bad rap for being like territorial. Yeah. And do you see anything like that with him?
Yeah, he does get pretty in the spring. It's like, I guess, late winter. He starts getting a little bit more territorial, and I do have other male iguanas in the room. They're a lot younger, but he does switch a little bit where he's a little bit more ornery, but you kind of have to show your dominance. And so when he does come at you, like I normally kind of nudge him with a towel or something, because I mean, if we were to grab onto you, it wouldn't feel great. But you just kind of have to put him in his place, just so he knows, like, hey, dude, knock it off. But he's normally, perfect. I mean, when we bring him to shows, he sits on the table or the tub or wherever we have him, and like kids just shower him with love. He's one of the best ambassador species we have.
Awesome. Now, do they interact with, say, like the cyclorian stuff that you have? Do they?
Yeah. The green iguana and the rhino are really good friends. I haven't introduced and again, they're all in their separate cages. I just allow them to interact when they're just free roaming. But they don't really seem to mind each other. They don't, anything. But the green iguana does try to go after the male exanthic or the blue and the red iguana. But they're a lot younger. They're about about 2 feet long. So, and Zoe is he's at least pushing 6. He's pretty big. So, and then the rhino is maybe every bit of 3, maybe close to 3.5 feet. So,
so that's a younger rhino for a rhino.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, she's pretty young, but still growing.
So now, what do you plan to do as far as can you bring like the babies or the younger iguanas to the shows, or are you just bringing Zoe?
Yeah. So I do bring Zoe. We just started bringing Kumba probably 3 or 4 months ago. We started bringing Kumba. When we first got Kumba, which was about 1.5 years ago, Kumba was still just very shy, very intimidated by life in general. And up until recently, she's, mellowed out. Like, I've got the scars to prove it. She was not, the nicest species, but it was all out of fear. I mean, it wasn't like she was, maliciously trying to attack me, but it just takes a lot of, persistence. And her cage lies on the ground. So I would slide open her cage, and she would walk up, and I've never seen this with any other reptile, but she'll rub up against you like a cat. And I don't know if it's just to familiarize herself with your scent, but she'll do that around the ground. And it was just really fun. It was almost like a bonding experience where she would just come up, like she'd kind of hiss at me and scuff a little bit, but eventually she would just start crawling on my back and sitting there, and she was perfect. And I was like, awesome. All right, cool. Now we've established our trust. We're good to go. I think it's time to start doing shows. And but what you were saying was, do you bring the smaller stuff? That's what I kind of designed our critter classes for. And the critter classes are kind of an homage to the classes that I grew up getting to do, that the man that was teaching them before is not doing anymore. So the critter classes I teach at local park districts, and I like to bring a lot of our ambassadors in training to those classes. And so those are the animals that are good with training, but they're not used to big crowds yet. And so, having, a classroom of, 10 to 20 children is the perfect place to expose these animals to a little bit more of a crowd and to, tolerate handling and different things like that. So. And
now how often can you bring, animals around for shows, or how often would you feel cool?
Like in what sense? Like what, like the breaks in between, like having
I mean, like, would you want to do consecutive days, or do you want to give them weeks off, or what's kind of...
I think it's by an individual basis. I mean, if you're looking at definitely the conditions. I mean, if it's colder out, if it's too warm. I mean, we do have some really nice months here, so it really the temperature really isn't too much of a factor. But that's right. But I think it's just you know your animals, and their limits at that point. Now we do have backups, so it's not an A team and a B team, but we do like to have animals that we could switch out just in case they're shedding, or one just ate, or this, that, whatever. So we've got Missy, our big 14-foot Burm, but then we also have Allie, our 12, 13-foot Burmese python. So if Allie is in shed, then we'll use Missy, and if Missy's in shed or eating or whatever, vice versa. So we do switch our animals out appropriately. Same thing with, the iguana. Zoe, we switch out for Kumba, Zoe now. And we've also got different tegus we swap out and things like that. So, but yeah, we're always constantly monitoring the animals and, on their stress. And if we do have consecutive shows, if they're doing fine, they've eaten, and they're, they look good to go, then yeah, we'll use them for, a show, back to back. But if not, we do have the luxury of having multiple animals to use, and so we don't stress them out or anything.
You kind of hinted at it, but as far as especially Chicago winters are dreadful. So, right. I mean, how do you kind of fight the winter when you're bringing animals out?
Well, pre-start your car. I mean, automatic starts are amazing. So again, like, thankfully all the shows that we were supposed to have last week got canceled, and they got pushed back to this week. So, Thursday and Friday we'll be doing shows, but yeah, definitely getting your car started as early as possible. Since I work out of the garage, mainly in the summertime, I'll load up the animals and have them staged in the garage, and then load them up into the stuff. But now, since the garage is freezing, I'll bring them into the house and load them up and stage them there, and just to assess them. If something needs to have a bath, I'll give it a bath, whatnot, and But other than that, I mean, it's just getting them into the vehicle as quickly as possible, and getting them out.
Now, I was about to say, oh, Chicago in general is giant. Do you service like all of Chicago, like Chicagoland area, or?
Yeah, I mean, we go as north as like the Wisconsin border. I mean, we've been offered shows in Wisconsin. Not to say I wouldn't do them, but I guess it's definitely like a right price type of thing. It's just because taking the day to go up to Wisconsin is, say it's a 2-hour commute there for an hour show, when we could have done 2 to 3 shows at a time in which it took us to do that. But yes, I mean, we'll do whatever show is asked to us or asked of us. But yeah, but there's also other people out here too that do the same thing. And it's crazy how big Chicagoland is, that we're able to sustain so many different reptile shows out there. So
there's a lot of competition.
Yeah, competition. Honestly, yeah. I mean, you can look at it as that. But yeah, there's Dave Donasso's Traveling World of Reptiles. You guys, I think you've seen Jim Nessie at the Tinley shows with Bubba the Alligator. There's Aaron Yance of Nature's Creatures, or Jessica Reddy of Animal Quest. There's so many different people that offer so many awesome programs. And yeah, I mean, yeah, me being a competitive person, yeah, you can look at them as competition, but they're all great people. So it's like, you're just happy that, you get to be a part of the awesome education that's going on here in Chicago.
And Chicago's just so populated. I mean, say
right.
you're in
there's room
if
for.
you were in random South Dakota, like you can't have.
Wow, you're picking on Carly now.
I was trying to do the one that Carly doesn't live in, but I couldn't remember. So I don't know. Sorry, Carly. I think she doesn't live in South Dakota. I don't know.
One of those desolate wastelands.
Right.
If you're there, you couldn't have all those, different people. But being in Chicago is just so many different people to hit in school.
Right. It is, very populated. You have to think about it too. Like, for every town that you have, you've got, a school system, you've got a park district, you've got a public library, and then you've got all the residents within that township. So you're like, oh my gosh, like Chicagoland is just so vast that, I mean, there's unlimited amount of work. So, and every show is different too. So, I mean, you could have, Dave come out one day, Jim come out the next day, and us come out the next. And it's like, cool. You've got 3 different shows. Yeah, you might see some overlapping animals, but we're all going to provide you something different, every show. So.
Yeah. Now, I guess we kind of got a little ahead of ourselves because I really want to get into the fact that, like, how do you start something like this? Because a lot of us have the resources to do so who are listening. I mean, we all have different kinds of reptiles, different species, and pet animals and animals that are chill, So how do you get started doing this, even if it's not, for business, I mean, per se?
For business, it's really easy, actually. Now, for the most part, if you're going to be doing public places, you do want to have insurance, and most of them will require you to have insurance. And so if you're just doing like a birthday party, or trying to think of any like a school. I mean, I don't think schools have really asked for insurance. I mean, I know some do, but
that would be the
number one.
Yeah, exactly. But for the most part, it's a lot of park districts that ask. Trying to think of what else asks for insurance most of the time, but some libraries do. But just going out and just putting on a good show. I mean, what you think you'd want to learn, from the basics of stuff, and share it, because we take a lot of the animals that we keep for granted, even things as corn snakes, and corn snakes, king snakes. Those animals are just as cool as some of the bigger things like the black-headed pythons or the woma. So more of the exotic species, but kids just want to have that hands-on interaction with these species that they wouldn't normally get to interact with. But anyways, I would go in, hopefully with insurance. But if
what
not,
is that insurance called, by the way? Like,
that's funny you ask. They generally, the stuff that they have, it's just a general liability, and they kind of push it underneath their like petting zoo insurance. But now there's specific, like there are companies that will actually have reptile show insurance, which thankfully they do, because that allows me to do a lot more shows than just the average person. So, but yeah, I would
crazy.
just go
that
in.
Set you apart from folks who don't have that,
Right. And two, I mean, also, it justifies itself, because once you start doing shows like that, then you can pay for and I think a year we pay like $1,500. And we'll just try and, pay that right at the beginning of the year, so that we're not paying that throughout the year. But yeah, I mean, insurance helps. Having a good group of animals. I mean, I think everyone has, even the breeders have, animals in their collection that are just their star animals, that they just, they love the interaction. They love, talking about it and interacting. And, I think even on a basic level, if you're at shows, I know you had that, was that a anathuristic or a,
Their anery, yeah.
Yeah, your anery, that was out the other day. And were you guys just educating with her, or was she?
So we just brought her as an adult, because every time we're at shows and people see the babies and we tell them, like, oh, it's going to get 3 to 4 feet. And they're like, what? Like, there's just no way. They're so small. So we brought her, and like, still blows my mind how people were so impressed by her.
That is like, yeah, I thought that's the most simple thing to most people, but people were just blown away, and it like made a whole crowd around our table like at times. So
like, and now we're like, oh, I guess we should breed aneries.
Yeah,
because people are like, can we buy her? And like, yeah, it's just cool that people are so excited for. I mean, they don't even know what a corn snake is. So I mean, let alone all the other things that you can show them is just
right. And I was saying, just as simple as getting a booth at your local reptile show. And we've got the Scott Smith show up at the All Animal Expo here in Wheaton. That's a few times a month. The Tinley Park show, I mean, that's a little bit more expensive to vend at the NARBC, but just setting up your animals at a show like that. I mean, it's amazing how many people are just spectators and want to, have an experience for the day. And, that could be holding your, fill in the blank, ball python, corn snake, leopard gecko, crested gecko. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think that people are shy away, especially at reptile shows, breeders who are vending. They shy away from people holding their animals and stuff like that. And I understand why.
Right.
But if you're safe about it, like, and people are putting on hand sanitizer and, we're just having kids hold them and stuff, I think that's a positive, interaction that will go a lot further than us selling a snake or making sure that our snakes are, not stressed or something for the
totally
1 second.
From a selfish reason, I was like, oh, if I let this kid hold this snake, they're gonna fall in love with snakes, and they're not gonna let their mom walk away.
Yeah, well, that's another person falling in love with snakes too, though. So, I mean, whether you sell a snake or not, if they love it at the end of the day, then I think that's a positive thing for everyone. I mean, how many breeders are there? I mean, there's an opportunity to. That's your reasoning behind it.
Yeah, I was just revealing my.
You're just being honest.
Motive. Yeah, just being honest.
Yeah, but I think it's cool though to get that interaction.
Yeah.
But sorry, we got you off track.
Yeah, no worries.
What are we talking about?
Sorry,
I think just starting education.
Yeah.
And in general, I mean, obviously we're all passionate about what we do. And we all do it for selfish reasons. I mean, with the breeders, it's like, look what I created. You know what I mean? Like, you're so proud of what you do. It's like, why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you be proud of something like that? And I guess for me, I'm my selfish reason because I don't know. I just like showing off my animals. I mean, I have such a passion for them, and I think going into it is, if you've got a passion for whatever species you're caring for, that will translate through to other people, and it doesn't really matter what you're talking about. Or who you're talking to. I mean, that will, inspire anyone that has an interest in these animals.
Have you ever gotten an animal that like you weren't super interested in, but it would be a good animal to like show off and be great for the business?
That's a good question.
I feel like I'd wrestle with that.
I know,
give it time.
So my first anaconda Gamora, I had a friend of mine who said that he needed to move her because he had to pay like a bill. And it was a female. She was maybe 2.5 feet at the time. And he's like, for like $160, come take her. And so this is 2013, 2014, before boom and whatever. I'm like, awesome. Yeah. I'll go grab her. And he's like, she eats well, she's tame. And I'm like, all right, cool. And before that, again, I had that anaconda stigma of they're, nasty and, but I'm like, if she's nice, I mean, this could be a cool talking point. And I have fallen in love with anacondas since. So I guess that was one of those purchases where I'm like, this could be a really cool animal to talk about. And I don't think I'll ever not own a green anaconda now. They're just amazing species.
And getting back, did you start doing like free shows at libraries and schools and stuff like that? I mean, how did you first get kind of your foot in the door?
So it started off with, well, I guess it started when we were doing shows for someone else. And the funny thing is that even before I started working with him, my mom was a preschool teacher at our local preschool. And so I would bring my animals in, and it was ridiculous. I'd bring in 10-gallon tanks with, little, baby red-tailed boas and leopard geckos. It was an obnoxious amount of it. I'd bring my whole collection. And I had, a bunch of corn snakes, leopard geckos, bullfrogs, different things that I'd caught. And I'd show them to the class. And I'm like, this is an obscene amount of animals. And I don't think anyone really cares to see them all. But I would start, bringing them to, little preschool stuff, or even my buddies' birthday parties, like their 8th birthday party. I'd go and, I'd show their animals off. But at 12 years old, 12, 13, I started doing shows for this guy. And my parents would drive me to people's houses with a carload of his animals. And I would do birthday parties. Like it was ridiculous. A 13-year-old growing up, you're like, what is this kid doing? But he's about to perform. And he had really cool species at the time. Like, he had Eastern indigos. I was bringing alligators and different things like that. Obviously big enough for me to handle, but it was just really funny that I got into it so young and was exposed to, a vast variety of different species from the get-go.
And also someone trusting a 13-year-old with that caliber animal.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. I think that kind of goes to his demise. He's no longer in the business. And that's kind of all I'll say about that. But I'm glad that I was the one that, got that experience, and it translated over to a successful career and hobby. And, but yeah, no, it was interesting. But yeah, I would say, just doing free shows. I mean, there's a lot of people that have, local fundraisers for things, just setting up a table with some animals. Obviously going to your local library, if you say, hey, free show, if there's, and you've got obviously the proper credentials, I'm sure they'll be like, yeah, perfect, go for it. I know that there's a lot of people out there that have insurance that don't do this for money. They just are like, hey, I really like doing this. And, I'd love just to do 1 or 2 shows a year for my community, just to, to help out.
And what do you feel like the impact of like a show like that is, even in your local community?
I mean, it's huge because I'm in the southwest suburbs. So, the zoo it's not too far away. I mean, it's about a 35-minute drive, but just to see some of those animals so close to where you live, I think is just a cool thing. Because normally, you go to your zoos, or you go to your, we've got the nature centers and different things like that around here. But I think seeing these animals that you would see on, your, a YouTube channel or Animal Planet or wherever, being so close to you and getting to interact with them is mind blowing. I mean, today is such a virtual, society that things that are tangible, things that you can touch, feel, and interact with are huge. So.
Yeah, I was wondering kind of, because I don't know if people realize that there's a difference between YouTube. I mean, yeah, you can touch a lot of people figuratively through YouTube, for sure. But it's very different when you're actually having people touch them.
Oh my gosh, right. And I think that's what makes, I don't know, what your guys' stance on Barchix is, but I try not to hate on people at all, but Barchix is, he's in Utica, Michigan, and I don't know that how close the nearest zoo is to them or whatever, but I mean, it looks like he's doing very, very well, and he has a very cool group of animals there. So when you can set up shop in an area that has kind of a deficit of animals or education, that you'll do really well. And I think he's doing a good job out there. I think it's cool. It can get really repetitive and a little eye rolly, but I think what part of our collection is glamorous. It's like, yeah, we've all got some scat in their cages, or some pieces of shed and stuff that we've missed and whatnot. But that's I feel like that's for the most part what I've seen is people's criticism of him and how he keeps his animals. But
Yeah, well, it's just mostly the other stuff. I don't know.
No comment.
Oh, no, really? Or the way
No,
he
no,
entertains
it's not.
people?
No, I don't know.
Okay, we won't get into it. Okay, but still, I just feel like exposure in general is good.
Is good, yes.
Now, the Coyote Petersons of the world, I despise, and I think that's what, you know, Barchix started off as was, hey, you know, shock and awe with you know, let's see which animals can bite me today. And
you know what's funny? I have those flip-flopped in my head a little bit.
What?
I feel the same. I feel the opposite about those 2 feet. I don't know. I feel like
really? Okay.
Coyote, even though like the bee sting shit is like kind of, and the snapping turtle stuff, and then he puts out like really good stuff, which I mean doesn't, I guess, make up for it.
Okay.
But I like when he puts out like the mini, you know, documentary style going out in the wild, even though I'm sure they're planted animals and stuff like that sometimes. But I think that those are interesting just from the perspective of like, because we grew up watching like Steve Irwin, and seeing animals in the wild for me is beyond, that's just a personal bias on that.
Right.
But.
Yeah. And 2, I mean, I had kind of a conversation with someone like, oh, you know, Coyote Peterson, this, and I'm like, I'm not a big fan. And, you know, I think there was a big difference because they're like, oh, well, he's, you know, the Steve Irwin of today. And I go, I think there's a big difference between having something intentionally bite you or being bitten on accident. Because again, Steve never went into an encounter with an animal hoping to get bit. And if he did, you know, he always said it was his fault. That's, you know, he messed up and he wasn't holding it properly or wasn't interpreting the animal, you know, as well as he thought he was. But again, I haven't really watched a full episode of Coyote just because you see too many things out there. So again, I'm not speaking too educated about his channel and what he puts out there, but from what I've seen and the clips that I've seen, I'm just, I don't know. Anytime I hear him scream, he sounds like Captain America as he's being turned into Captain America. Steve Rogers as he's turned into. Do you ever notice that?
No,
watch Captain America, and when he's being turned, when he's in that tube and he's screaming, he's like, I can handle it, I can whatever, because they're about to stop his transformation. He sounds exactly like Steve Rogers turning into Captain America. It's the funniest thing. You'll notice it next time, and you'll be like, dang it! Anytime I hear him scream in pain, it's a Captain America scream.
That's amazing.
Okay, now we have to go watch
that. I think the distinction is that Steve Irwin has done so much for conservation and animals in the wild in comparison to people today that haven't really held too much of a candle to that as far as I don't know, to me that's what's important. Like the animals out in the wild, and obviously having people care about the animals.
Oh, for sure.
You know, it's a mixture of those 2 things that I feel like we get lost sometimes because we're private keepers, you know, keeping at home. Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's definitely hard to find a venue to help out. I mean, I guess it isn't, but it is, but it isn't. And, you know, we all do this, I guess we could say selfishly for, you know, financial gain in some aspects. And, you know, sometimes it is kind of hard to donate because again, in today's world that we live in, it's kind of rough. I mean, we got to, you know, utilize as much money as we can to support ourselves. And, you know, and that's why with, you know, the educating and even stuff like this podcast, I mean, you're spreading so much education and so much awareness for different things. So, you know, we all do what we can with what we have. And, you know, if it's not monetarily, it's with our time and our education. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just wondering, what were you going to say?
Oh, you can go. I mean, I have a question.
Yeah.
Selfishly, what advice or language would you suggest to someone to use who's doing their first? Stop doing that with your mouth. You keep talking.
Really?
You do. You talk what I'm saying. It drives me crazy.
All right.
What advice would you give for someone who's doing their first preschool snake talk on Friday? What advice would you suggest?
Think basics. Think basics. Because I like to nerd out sometimes, and I'll talk way past their level of intelligence, and so you have to go with you know, the basics of the, you know, all snakes shed, reptiles shed, you know, why they flick their tongue to smell, that they don't have external ears, they cannot blink. Just kind of cover the basics of the anatomy of a snake, because they're really not learning. They're not thinking outside of what they're seeing. And so, you can go into, what they eat, and, where you can find them, but just stick to the basics of, what you're seeing in front of you and why it is.
That is huge, because like the more and more we do, like even on Instagram, you see that like the things that we see as basic and simple, people are still kind of blown away with, or especially little kids. Like I forget that, like, oh yeah, I can just tell them that they, smell with their tongue or whatever, instead of going all the way deep into it. Like they just like, they're blown away by that kind of stuff. So I think that's like, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I was telling people in the chat, I just hope my kids don't try to eat it, because I have some little psychos.
Oh,
well, I'm gonna be like the olive python or something. So I don't know if they want to put that in their mouth.
I had a kid lick an ink pad yesterday. Literally had to get her to stop licking an ink pad. Like, just they might try to eat it. Just
no.
As long as they don't, I don't know, pee on me or do anything.
How are you gonna pee on it? What?
They've definitely peed on you.
Oh! I thought you were saying as long as the kids don't pee on the snake.
Oh my gosh!
I don't want them to pee on anything. There's no peeing anywhere. Little psychos.
Wait, are you saying you're worried about the kids peeing or the snake peeing?
No, the kids. I don't care about the snake.
Oh,
I'll get peed on by the snakes all the time.
How is the kid gonna pee on the snake? They're not gonna put it in their pants and pee on it.
Oh,
no, I don't trust little kids. I've heard your stories.
I know they've peed on me, but that's different.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a human.
Oh,
I'm a human too.
No, but you're snake. Okay. We're so off topic.
Where are we going?
Oh man.
I mean, I do have to say, like, you read the crowd. Obviously, you have me, so I can tell you what my kids have been learning about.
I can't read children. I'm sure they'll be like picking their nose and not paying attention.
Honestly, it's really easy with children, because if you're losing them, they'll walk away. I mean, little kids are not afraid to just be like, yeah, you're boring me, and they will walk away.
And especially, yeah, my kids, yeah.
My worst shows are shows that are at, like, you'll go to some birthday party where the parents had rented out a country club. There's a bouncy gym, a candy bar, a DJ on a hoverboard, and you're just like, wait, I have to do a show in the middle of this? And if you keep half of the kids, you're doing well. But I'm just like, oh my God, there's so many distractions for all these little kids. But normally classrooms are really good. And with the teachers, obviously teachers are huge. I mean, I'd actually prefer doing shows for little kids when teachers are there, because when you do parties, parents are like, oh, you're watching my kids now, so I can go off and, do whatever. And that does not work. Any of the time it does not work. But the teachers normally have their little routines of like, all right, they do the clap thing, or you'll have like a little saying like, oh, we all sit down and be quiet, or I don't know. They have these little cues in order for the kids to kind of straighten back up and to pay attention. So I find that preschools and schools in general are a lot easier to do than like a birthday party, where it's more of a looser environment.
So I don't know if you already answered this, but are birthday parties your biggest majority that you do?
You know what? I think it's pretty even. I think we do an even amount of libraries, schools, birthday parties and events. I mean, it just depends on the year. So like in the summertime, it's dead even between. It's divided, evenly divided between all those. A lot of birthday parties, but just as many events and stuff. But the spring and the winter are a lot more schools, and then summer, I guess maybe a little more libraries and birthday parties.
So. That makes sense.
Now, what do you do? Shit, I just had a question and then Dan distracted me in the chat.
Okay, wait. Before this, you told me they do movies.
Oh yeah. So I didn't want to talk about that yet, but I mean, we can kind of.
We can get back to that if who had a question?
No. He told me you do movies, so explain that.
Yeah. So I'll get back to that, but you said something a while ago that I did want to cover, which was finding something in the wild. seeing stuff in the wild. And have you ever seen a corn snake in the wild?
Okay, so that is something that I have not seen, even though I've lived in. I found Texas rat snakes in Dallas. Okay. This year, I will try to find one. I mean, it will be very, very hard to find one in the northernmost range in the Pine Barrens. Okay. Honestly, people can go most of their lifetime not finding one in the Pine Barrens in particular. So I'm going to try, and I'm going to try doing it in pretty much the hardest place to find them. So
very cool.
No, I lived in Alabama, and I never saw one. We were in Tuscaloosa, and I just talked to the other day this guy named Brian Holt, and he was telling me that Alabama only has like a few sightings since, in that county there hasn't been a corn snake found since 2009, I believe, and I was at school there in 2010. Wow. So I don't think that they're doing that well, it seems, to the west there, to the west basically of the coast. They do pretty well on the coast, it seems, but not very well west of that. So I'll try to find them in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. I don't know why.
No, I was just saying, because my first big moment, like seeing an animal that like I was familiar with in the wild, was a corn snake in Florida. It was in Broward County. We were out of Pompano, and I caught maybe 4 or 5 corn snakes, and that was like mind blowing. Because we were right off of the beach, and we had this big mangrove thicket, and every morning we'd flip over palm husks and different things like that, and you just pick them up, and there they were, just these beautiful corn snakes. I'm like, holy crap! So seeing stuff in the wild like that is just when it's something that you know about and you keep on a regular basis, and you only see in pet stores, and you see it out in the wild. It's the trippiest thing in the world. Even too, that same year I found a basilisk in that mangrove. And, just seeing a bunch of green iguanas and stuff was crazy too.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I can't imagine if I ever find a corn snake. Just finding, a Western rat snake and an emery rat snake and a ribbon snake, a rough green snake. Right. I was freaking out. I think I may cry if I find a corn snake.
Honestly, it's an emotional experience. So get prepared for it.
But yeah, if we do get a chance to go to Florida, especially South Florida, those corn snakes are beautiful.
Yes, oh definitely. So I don't know what phase this was, because this didn't look like a typical normal. So I don't know if it was a Miami phase or not, because Broward is very close to Miami-Dade County. It's like maybe 30 miles away. So but they were the coolest corn snakes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think any corn snake that I'll see in the wild will be the coolest one automatically.
Yeah, you'll take a normal, and it's just fine.
Oh, yeah. It will be a dirty, disgusting. In the Pine Barrens, they're nasty looking. They are not good looking. Like in Florida, where you found them, they could be
clean pattern,
red, or they could be red and black, with beautiful pattern. And yeah, not in the Pine Barrens, man. I got to see a dirty, they have a blackish wash to them. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, just this red that is muddled with brownish black. It's really not great, but it will be great to see them, if I want. Do you get a chance to herp a lot?
Yes and no. Not honestly, maybe once a year. I do get called out. So I used to work for animal control in my township, and I do house the animals for our county. Like, say if they randomly get a ball python that's in a house that was foreclosed on or something like that, then I'll get to keep those animals, and then give them to people once they're quarantined and whatever has gone through. But and mainly it's like bearded dragons that people throw out. Like it's kind of like disgusting how many times it's like, oh, we found another bearded dragon in a garbage can. But that's mainly the gist of it. Or we'll get like a couple of years ago. Now I could have, because I'm permitted to own alligators, but a couple of years ago there was some alligators in a pond that our guy out here, Bob Beversha, had to go and catch. But for the most part, it's just getting those animals and catching them for the wild, or for the animal control, but not as often as I'd like.
Yeah, but it seems like you get your wild animal fix in a way if you got to catch a gator in a pond, and
right.
Even if it's in Illinois.
Cool. They said there was 2. We only saw 1, but who knows? That one could still be out there. But
that's going to be a neighborhood myth, I think, forever.
Yeah, for sure.
So besides that, I guess we can move on to the movie thing now.
Movies.
Yeah. So what exactly do you do?
So what's up?
Sorry, what exactly do you do with movies, and how did you get into that aspect?
Right. So we provide reptiles, our collection to a company that supplies them for movies and television shows and commercials and whatnot. So it's Animal Talent Chicago, and they're probably the best in the business at this point. I think in 2015 he won like the best handler award, and that's for everyone out in California and in New York. So Chicago is kind of the up and coming industry here. Up until like 2013 or 2014, Chicago had a really high tax, which surprising, Chicago had high taxes, but they had a really high tax on like productions. And so they finally gave a tax cut to filming in Chicago. And, from then I think they went from like maybe 3 or 4 shows, which was like Chicago, PD, Shameless, and maybe Empire was in its infancy back then, but has gone to like a few dozen plus movies now, and there's tons of commercials being filmed out here. So in 2014, I had sent an email out to this guy saying, hey, if you're looking for any animals, we've got a lot of tame and cool creatures that we have at our disposal, and if you ever need something for something, let me know. Well, I get an email back in 2015. His animal person or reptile person had gotten out of the business, and he was looking for someone new. So I literally emailed him at like the right time, where I was like #1 on his call list to do that stuff. So our first production that we did was Chicago Fire, and our tortoise Mortis, who's an African spur-type tortoise, was the tortoise in distress, and he got to be saved by the hunky firefighters on that television show. And it was fun. We were out there for like a week, and they wanted 2 tortoises. They wanted a smaller tortoise and Mortis. So we've got 6 sulcatas, so they vary from 20 pounds to 80. So we brought one of our smaller ones, Tank, and they got their own trailer, and it was a great time. And we got to meet the whole cast, got to meet Dick Wolf, and it was a good time.
Oh,
I don't know who that is. You're excited, but I don't know who that is.
Mister, talking about me not knowing who David Attenborough is, you should know.
Well, I don't know famous people. Yeah,
Dick Wolf is in the credits of like half the shows on.
Yeah.
Is he a producer or something?
All the Law and Orders, all the Chicagos, and even more that I can't think. He's like, he's
everything. So,
is he a producer or is he an actor?
No.
What? Don't say no. I'm just curious. Or does he write
he's
shit?
Not an actor. No, he's a producer. Yeah.
He produces all those.
At the end of every Law and Order, it's like Dick Wolf.
Oh, so he's a badass.
Dick Wolf Productions is you'll see it at the end of every show that he does.
Easily a millionaire.
And are all of his things are in Chicago?
No. Oh no, they're spread out between Chicago, I think LA, New York, so they're all over the place.
I said all the Law and Orders. Those are.
I don't know anything, guys. Okay.
That's all right.
Well,
showbiz people here. All these showbiz folks.
He does all. I mean, Law and Order's been off like 20+ years, so he's just been raking in that money.
So, what kind of like considerations though do you have to take when you have animals on set?
Well, considerations is so we get to be on set for a majority of the time. If I can get off for work, I'll go. But if not, you're leaving him in the hands of these handlers. And working with Bo for so many years now, I'm 100% comfortable with giving him Zoe or one of these animals to go off and do a show. But you definitely have to look at the credibility of the people that you're entrusting with your animals. If you can't be on set, and then also like what type of production you're going to be a part of. There's many a times where you'll get calls for like, oh, like let's do a photo shoot, and you're like, oh great, what's going on here? And so you can be asked to do some very interesting things that you're like, you know what, I'm not okay doing that. So
we may have to dig into that if you have any specific examples.
It's just there's like you'll get involved with some, because again, snakes and photo shoots, I mean, yeah, they can be they can get very revealing. And so it's just like, I'd rather not be a part of that. I mean, I do have, you know, a lot of the students that I teach, their parents follow me on Instagram and Facebook. So it's like, I'd rather not have these half naked women on, you know, on my Facebook profile and stuff like that, you know, sharing the photos and whatnot. So
I don't know why that's such a big thing, but yeah,
it is.
Yeah, the snake is such a big thing.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that, you know, I did get a little bit of heat for was, I think the last 8 years we've been animal handlers at our local haunted house this year. And at first people were, you know, not knowing anything about it, were thinking that we were running around chasing people with these animals. But if you've ever been to like a really good haunted house, it is about the scares, but it's not. We work for Statesville Haunted Prison and Hell's Gate Haunted House, which are like a Disney production. Like it looks like you're walking into something that would only be found at Disney World or Universal Studios. And we supply them with snakes, we bring cockroaches and different things, and we put them in like these designed sets where they're part of the scenery. So they're in cages and stuff. But as people are waiting to go into the haunted house, they get a close-up look at, you know, some of our snakes, like our Dumos boas or our bull snakes and things like that. So we did get a little bit of heat from people initially when they heard that there were live animals at a haunted house. But I think that's just because they thought that we were, you know, running around and chasing people with these animals. But it's actually been a very cool experience working at those haunted houses. And a lot more education is done than you would think, because a lot of people are touching snakes for the first time at the haunted house than they would, you know, if they were going to their local, you know, pet store, or, you know, reptile event. So I think they're more. Go ahead.
Sorry, go keep going.
No, go ahead.
It's almost like a whole separate business, you know, like in addition to like the educational things, doing the movies and doing the haunted houses. I mean, I feel like that could almost be like a whole business.
It is. It's a huge month for us. October is really huge, and I wouldn't have gotten into it. That's actually kind of what got me back into education in general, which is really weird. But I was dating a girl back in a while ago. I don't want to give a timeline here, but I kind of gotten out of reptiles for a minute just because it wasn't something that she was into, and I kind of let that person kind of dictate what I kept. So I was getting more of the furry animals like the sugar gliders and ferrets and whatnot, and I you know, being allergic to those animals, I was kind of doing it out of the
wow.
So, yeah, I know. But I really did care for those animals, and I would keep those animals again. I just can't have them in close quarters to where I'm sleeping per se. So, but I will, you know, hopefully eventually get back into some furry things. But I got a call from a friend of mine from high school, and they're like, "Hey, you know, we're going to be doing this commercial for a haunted house, and would you mind bringing some snakes out?" And so I had one snake, and I didn't have any spiders or cockroaches. So obviously, my best friend Mike, do you have any? So he had those giant cave roaches, the ones that are like a foot long, and some big hissers, and then he had this beautiful Honduran curly haired that he had for, oh my gosh, maybe 10 years at the time. And it recently died like a year or two ago, so it's been quite some time. But we went on set, and their commercial was about phobias. So they were, you know, they wanted to show a snake, and they did it as like an old timey like reeler film. I guess I'll see if I can share the link to you guys, but just to get a better idea of what it was. But it was just like, oh, you know, at this company we like to go over our phobias and, you know, introduce the phobias to the people and whatnot. So it was a really cool experience. And the guy's like, you know, you could do this full time. And me being like a horror fan and loving haunted houses, I'm like, all right, you know, I'll take this on. And from there, it just fell into this passion. And I was like, you know what, maybe I should get back into this reptile, you know, gig. And that's kind of what started me off onto where I'm at today. So,
how do you maintain like husbandry in that situation? You know, so the haunted house situation.
Yeah, so we get our own room, and I bring I've got spare vision, spare racks, and different things like that. So I basically just uproot the animals there, and they have their offset enclosures and their onset enclosures. You know, all the animals have heated enclosures. They've got heat tape on bottom and ceramics on top. And throughout the night, that's pretty much all I'm doing is monitoring, you know, their well-being, is, you know, seeing if, you know, they're looking stressed out, which is honestly none of the time. The animals are, they're in a well lit, or they're well lit in a dark environment, so they can't see outside of their enclosure. So it really doesn't stress them out at all, which has been very cool to see. And just making sure the temperatures are maintained, because it does get kind of cold here in October. So I make sure that they stay at appropriate temps. But other than that, I mean, it's been a pretty great experience.
Now, is there like anything, because I did not expect that to be a thing, really.
Yeah.
I've never, I mean, I've
is there
been to,
any other like
houses, but I've never known that's a thing.
Yeah, is there any other like weird income stream that you can have, like educating animals / you know, just using animals in general?
You cut out after or before weird. So any weird what?
Are there any other like streams of income that, you know, besides haunted houses, like things that I would not know of?
The other one, I guess, would be the taxidermy part of it. Working at the haunted houses, you get a lot of people that like do that macabre jewelry and things like that. So obviously, as breeders, we know that, you know, there's a percentage of animals that don't make it per season, and so I will put those animals aside in the freezer, and you know, after the season's done, you know, I may have, you know, out of the, you know, 100 babies that I produce, you know, I'll probably have a dozen or two babies that just were stillborns or didn't make it or were non-feeders that I couldn't get going. And I'll give them to these people, and they'll, you know, jar them up and, you know, do whatever else they kind of please with them, respectfully, you know, not in like a mutilated aspect. So
yeah, we learned that too late. Once
oh no,
I flushed a two-headed corn snake that was dead in the egg, and I took a picture. I took a picture and I put it on Instagram, and I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. And everyone was like, please give it to me. Please give it to me. And I flushed it down the toilet already.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was, I mean, you could have definitely.
I was like, get this mutant out of here.
Yeah.
Get this.
Yeah, we used to, man, years ago, we used to have someone that we knew that we would sell different specimen to the University of Chicago. And he would jar them up and add them to their collection there. So, you know, we had kept a lungfish squiggles, an African giant lungfish. Is it African giant or African lungfish? I get pixie frogs, all those things mixed up. But an African lungfish had died squiggles, and he was like 3 or 4 feet long. And so we gave him that. We had like a little Burmese mountain tortoise that we were raising up that had caught a bad respiratory infection. And, you know, we were unable to save it, but we had, you know, given him those type of creatures. So he really appreciated just some of our, I mean, I wouldn't say failures, but, you know, some of our casualties in the hobby, he really appreciated, because it expanded their collection of wet specimen. So.
Yeah, it's always nice to put them to use instead of flushing them down
the toilet. It is. I mean, as tragic as it is to lose something, especially something you've cared for many years. It's nice to see it, you know, go to some type of, you know, school or, you know, research and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I definitely want to do in the future, is connect with our local like colleges or universities. That's something we didn't really do in Dallas. But like, as we're trying to talk more about, you know, conservation and community and everything like that, I want to reach out to like, we have such big universities here, and just see like what we can do for them, what we can do together, and everything like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting that you were kind of hitting on is the fact that I just forgot what I was thinking. I'm so bad tonight.
Yeah, no worries.
My brain is just not working that well. What were you just saying? Pen and all that stuff. Shit, man, I lost
universities and like what we can offer them, if there's anything they can offer us, or like what we can do together for the community. Like,
oh yeah. So speaking of that, because obviously there's a gap that sometimes can be kind of mended for the fact, like academics and personal keepers, like things like in the local community, like herp societies. So
that was where I was leading.
Oh, that's so Colin had mentioned before the show that you are involved in Chicago Herp Society, I believe it is. So can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So every year in April, the Chicago Herp Society puts on Reptile Fest. and it is the nation's largest educational reptile show. So there's no selling of animals there. It's strictly all education. So people from local hobbyists, reptile breeders, conservation groups, museums, and AZA accredited zoos show up with their specimen. And I think last year we had over 180 species total of herps on display, and 70 educators with a total of 7,000 participants walking through the door. So it was one of our largest crowds we've had. So for 2019, Reptile Fest will be on April 13th and 14th at Northeastern's Physical Education Complex. So definitely, if you're in the Chicagoland area, go out to Reptile Fest. Mike and I exhibit there. We've been exhibiting there for the last 4 years, and every year it gets bigger and better, and it is a really cool time.
Can you say those dates one more time?
Yeah, it is April 13th and 14th. And if you want more information on the event, simply go to reptilefest.com, or you can visit the Chicago Herpetological Society Facebook page or website.
Cool. So what can you expect from something like that? Is it just a bunch of educators there, or are there?
Yeah. So you know what? Actually, not that many. I think education-wise, there's only us and Deb Crone, who's the frog lady, and she's up in the northern suburbs. But I think Crosstown Exotics and her are the only ones that actually attend the show. But you've got, big names like Rob Carmichael's Wildlife Discovery Center. And he owns he's a curator of a nature center up in Mundelein. And he actually has a fest coming up called Reptile Rampage. And that should be, it's March 10th, which is the same thing, just a smaller lineup of people, but just as fun. But you get just a bunch of people there that are very enthusiastic about what they do and species that they keep. So even if they're not educators, they're just local hobbyists. And we have people come from all around, from even Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana, coming to display their animals. Even if they're, again, just a hobbyist, they're not an educator, and they've got, I don't know, an anole that they're super proud of, and when they want to share to the public, they will bring their tank with the anole in it, and they'll just talk about, Freddie the anole, or, so that's what makes it so cool of an event to go to, because you're seeing just things from all around. And then the junior herpers, so Chicago Herp Society has their junior herpers, which meets, I think, every other Sunday or one Sunday a month, I'm not sure, but they have their kids there, and so their students are showing off what they've learned and the skills that they've been taught throughout their classes and their time at junior herpers. So they get to bring their corn snakes and other keepers' corn snakes and stuff. So we're working on getting my kids at critter classes to come up and join the junior herpers to educate and to show off their skills.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I feel like, I don't know, you guys are far surpassing what I've heard of any other herp society or anything going on.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago, we have a very strong society. I know, the Madison Herp Society, Ryan McVeigh up there is the president. They have a very strong society as well, and they come down too to help out and vend. There's the Phoenix. If you've never been to the Phoenix Herpetological Society, go. That's an experience. That is one of the coolest societies I've ever been to. They actually have a house that was, and I might be misspeaking here, but from what I thought I heard, it was donated by one of the original presidents. The house was donated, and the property is is like their sanctuary for where they keep all of their reptiles. So they've got 21 or 22 out of the 23, I think it's now 24 species of crocodilian on their property. They, just the immense amount of species that they keep is amazing. And I've actually adopted a few animals out of their society that they have dropped off.
Yeah, that's
cool.
It is really cool. They've got a little pole barn out there that's got a lot of their hots. They've got a field of sulcatas. I think they've got over 100 sulcatas that are, 100 pounds or larger, and you can go and feed them. They've got a big, pasture of leopard tortoises, a big rhino iguana enclosure. It's unbelievable. It's every reptile lover's dream.
So, I mean, even for, I mean, ours seems very infrequent and doesn't happen that often. Like, how often does the
You all
Chicago
meet?
Herp Society meet?
Yeah, it's the last Wednesday of every month, and it's held at the Peggy Noda Bart Museum in Lincoln Park, and that's in Chicago.
That's awesome. So, do you, are there people doing like presentations and stuff like that? Like, what
Yeah.
happens?
So, you know, every week they'll have a presenter or a speaker that will talk on something that they're studying. So, whether they're like a renowned, you know, herpetologist or biologist, you know, speaking on, we had a guy come out and talk about hingeback tortoises, or we had, you know, Dr. Mader come out and talk about green iguanas and his experience with them in the veterinary field. It's just every week is just something different, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's good just to physically talk to different, you know, reptile keepers and breeders and whatnot, you know, in person, because I think people can get caught up on all these Facebook chats and different stuff. And it's weird when you're face to face with someone and you're talking and you disagree with them. You're just like, oh, okay, like I wouldn't do that, but yeah, that's what you do and whatever. And on Facebook and, you know, Instagram and all this stuff, I feel like it's more of like who's better than who. And I think if people started going to these societies, I think, you know, they'd learn a lot. But two, it's like, I don't know why everyone's so hot-headed. Like, it's just, we're all here because we love something. You know, why not just, you know, get along? I mean, it's, again, just because you're doing something doesn't mean that I have to do the same. I mean, a lot of times you can do multiple things and get the same result. It's just, you know, works with, you know, whoever's doing it. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of times on the internet, I mean, the intent is lost. I mean, all of our intent is to keep our animals well and do right by our animals, you know?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, I've got a really good friend of mine who's a ball python breeder, and they call them, there's a name for people that keep pythons in tanks. Like tankers, or like, have you ever heard of that? Or
No.
He tells me all the drama, and I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not in that group of people. I mean, I keep all pythons, and mainly because people give them to me. They're like, oh, I can't keep this, and I'm like, oh, you know, I mean, it's good for birthday parties and for shows and stuff, so I'll keep them, and or I'll, you know, rehome them. But you know, he talks about all this lingo on like people that are like, oh, I'm a never tanker, or I'm a never, you know, a never like a never tubber, you know. I'm just like, okay, cool, like it. Whatever, you know, I mean, again, snakes can live in a bunch of different, you know, enclosures, but there's so many people that just live and die by their belief. And I'm like, I'd just rather not. It's like, hey, you know, everyone's situations are different. So whatever works and the animal's healthy, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've already mentioned this. I'm sorry. The
No,
chat is like really taking my time tonight.
Sorry.
But what part of what you keep do you breed?
Oh, that's a great question. No, I didn't talk about that. I got to write this down as I go so I can just check mark. The big thing, yeah.
Out of order, bounce off the walls.
No worries. But I breed Mexican black king snakes, blue tongue skinks. I do corn snakes, not for morphs. I mean, I've got it's a pied side, a blood red pied side. Is that how you say it? Okay.
Yeah, you're acting like, oh yeah, whatever, but like that's Melissa's like favorite thing.
Is it really?
That's a thing a lot of people don't do, I feel like.
Well, again, this is an animal I received. I don't even, honestly, I can't even remember where I got it from.
Well, you can pass the buck along. You know?
Well, it's a male, and so I don't know. I've gone on the corn snake calculator, and I'm like, oh, what can I breed to get something out of this? But last year, all I think we got were normals. So I've got an albino corn and a snow corn female. And then I've got a nice Okatee male that I got from someone who has got a beautiful line of Okatees up here in Illinois. And I've just bred those to normals, and I'll sell those to the local pet shops. You know, Brian at, you know, Reptile House will take them, Gills and Thrills in Lockport. You know, there's a bunch of really cool specialty shops, or Animal Island that we've got out here too. But so the corn snakes, Sinaloa and milks, I am in love with. I breed those. What else? I've bred Dumo's woes in the past. I'm not breeding those this year. I've bred jungles in the past, but I'm not going to be breeding those this year. Same thing with the Burms. I'm not going to be breeding them. I like to give them a couple years off. It's fun to have eggs that are as big as your hand in the incubator. But I'm really trying to hit a lot of the colubrids this year. So trying to think of what else I'm breeding.
And that's a pretty big deal, especially something like Dumeral's boas. That's not something that a lot of people breed.
No, yeah. And I just got lucky. I just kept the two together and they naturally bred on their own. And the first litter was like maybe 7 babies. And same thing with the jungle carpets. I was cleaning out a cage and I thought that I had 2 females in a cage, but it ended up being a pair. And she was laying on a clutch of eggs and it was on my birthday. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best birthday present ever. And so definitely keeping and rearing jungle carpets was an interesting task, just because they are very fierce coming out of
those babies are very, very calm.
Yeah. But you know, that was a lot of fun. So and now I've gotten I acquired a jungle carpet that is they call it a Crutchfield line. I don't know if that's a thing or if it's just something someone made up, but it's a beautiful, beautiful black and white or black and yellow jungle carpet that I've got with this one's more of like a fluorescent yellow female. So hopefully I'll pair those up and get some better quality babies later on. Melissa, do you have something? Are you thinking of something or are you reading the chat?
She's typing. I don't know what she's doing.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you had a question. I was just rambling.
Totally a chat.
That's interesting though, because Crutchfield, I feel like I don't think that's like an actual line recognized by carpet breeders, but I mean, he's definitely had a few come through his hands. But
so it's probably just a Crutchfield produced jungle carpet python. I don't know. I'm not gonna say that because anytime I post something online, they're like, "Oh, well, that might be mixed with Erie and Jaya," and I'm like, "Oh, great, all right, you know what? That's why I'm not on Morelia Python podcast right now." Right, exactly. So I'm like, all right, well, it's a carpet python for sale. So whatever locality it is, you take it, but it's going to be a great pet. So, you know, whoever wants it, wants it. So, but yeah, breeding the Mexican black king snakes was one of the first projects I really pursued. When I was younger, I think I produced blue tongue skinks when I was 14 years old. And that, I don't know if I discovered the key to breeding them early on, but I kept them on an external wall in my bedroom. And I guess they got cooled and heated properly throughout the season. And I had babies consecutively for 4 years in a row. So I just kind of realized, that you just keep them like colubrids. And that's kind of how it goes with some of those species. So, after blue tongues, it was like, what else do I want to get into? And the Mexican black king snakes were something I started back in 2013 is when I started collecting, snakes. And when I was first selling them, I think I couldn't even get them out the door in 2013, 2014, or 2015 and 16 for like $50. And then they skyrocketed this year.
Yeah.
And same thing with blue tongue skinks. When I was producing blue tongue skinks, I was selling them for literally $30 to $40. And I was begging people to take them. Like, my dad's not going to let me go home with these animals. So take these skinks. And people are like, all right. Which is funny. I was at a reptile store I hadn't been to before. And I was talking to the guy and, or to the owner. And I go, if you, want any blue tongues, I'll wholesale them to you, whatever. And he's like, oh, cool. Because again, sometimes it's easier just to wholesale animals than it is to actually sell to customers. But she's like, actually, if you want one, someone's going to be dropping one off here pretty soon. No joke. That person had bought that blue tongue skink from me at the show that I was trying to get him away. And she's just like, yeah, I've had it for like 7 years. I'm like, oh my God, totally. I'll keep this one. So that was so cool. I couldn't believe that I actually got one of them back that I had produced from years ago. So it was so random. But yeah, no. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, it was crazy how much the Mexican black king snakes jumped up in price. I think in 2017, I was selling them males for $150 and females for $175. And then this year, it was like males for $200, females for like $275. I'm like, holy moly. I'm like, crap. And you know what? I sold all my babies for over $200 a piece. I'm like, you know what? When the going's hot, you just sell. So I'm glad that I've got a second female that I reared up, and she'll be ready to go this year. So I'll have a little bit more. But my female this year, her biggest clutch was 14 eggs, and which stinks. I didn't get to capitalize on that because she ate 2 of them as soon as I got the nesting box ready. So I was like, no. So, but she's consistently, you know, her first couple clutches was like 7 to 8 eggs. And then, you know, as she's gotten older, they've kind of grown up to be a solid, like, you know, 9 to 10 eggs per clutch. And so when she had 14, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is like the year that they're going, you know, for tons of money. And she ate 2. So, but yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
That's still a good clutch, though.
Right. But it was an amazing clutch. So I'm hoping, you know, she'll do just as well. And she double clutches just as well. I mean, her double clutch or her second clutch is normally around 7 to 8. So, I mean, that's still an amazing clutch for a second clutch. Or viable, at least 7.
Yeah, I think I would be happy with 7 to 8 the first
Right,
time, you know.
right.
So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But blue-tongued skinks, I feel like, are something that a lot of people have trouble breeding. So the fact that you bred them so effortlessly,
Right, yeah.
And were they Indo animals?
Yeah, those were Irian-Jayas. Actually, I believe the male at the time was a Tannenbar, and the female was an Irian-Jaya, which I didn't know. So purists, don't jump at me. I was a kid. So. But now I've got a group. I've got a pair of Halamaharas, a pair of Irian-Jayas. I don't have a pair of Northerns. I just have a bunch of dude Northerns, and I've got a female on the way. So hopefully she'll be ready to go in a couple of years. But yeah, I mean, it's cooling them down. I literally had them cooling down in the basement with the colubrids, you know, for I think it was 2.5 months. And I just brought them up last week. And so I've already seeing some action out of my males. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Once again, she's not another animal. Melissa
Blue-tongue
doesn't.
skinks?
Yeah, I don't know.
Really?
Oh my god, they're so.
She doesn't like Samboa. She doesn't like things shaped weird.
Oh yeah. What about monkey tail skinks?
Anything with legs, I'm out.
Do you like monkey tail skinks?
I don't.
That's what Andrew had on his shoulder during the show.
Probably not. Anything with
it's
legs.
A green thing.
If there's anything with legs, I'm out. Because they
Really?
either like gross, slimy, or like half.
Well,
dinosaur.
none of them are slimy, pretty much. I mean,
Skinks
let's talk about.
slimy.
No. What?
I can't believe you're even like on this podcast talking shit about skinks being slimy when you've seen a skink, you've touched
Right.
I have not touched a skink. I did
What
touch Shay's skink.
Like
Better with.
I can't think of a reptile that I've touched that was slimy.
I know, and I'm probably wrong.
Zero.
Snakes are slimy, and I'm always like, no, they're not. I promise. But for some reason, skinks look slimy to me, and I just.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. They're like little armored, you know, lizards.
Face.
Even the monkey.
Yeah.
I initially got into blue tongues because I was like obsessed with Steve Irwin and the shingleback skinks. And when I found out that shinglebacks were like $2 billion here in the United States, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna even pursue that. But blue tongue skinks are the next best thing. And I can't remember if I saw monkey tails on his program or if I just saw him in a book. But I was like, dude, monkey tail skinks would be so cool too. And in 2017, I finally graduated from college at like, I think it was 26, or 20. I was turning 27, and I graduated. I'm like, you know what? My graduation present's going to be a monkey tail skink, and that's it. So, you know, a buddy of mine was moving one and got it for a really good price. So,
yeah, that's
which I think is the same shipment of blue tongue or same shipment of monkey tails as Brandon Fowler's monkey tail George. So.
Oh wow! So
yeah.
I mean, it's weird that monkey tail skinks a few years ago, I feel like were not imported at all. Nothing was going on. They were probably much more expensive, and it seemed like now they're more readily available in the hobby.
Yeah, I think that because the demand was so high that I don't know the details on it, but I would imagine that some of these are probably coming in illegally. I know the shipment that mine was brought in on, and the one that Brandon's was too, was an illegal shipment from the Solomon Islands. And so all of those animals were confiscated and then distributed to, you know, AZA accredited facilities and educators. So, but I know for the most part that group of animals were all males too. So it was hard to place them because you needed males with any species don't do well together. So, but they live communally in groups. So, which is crazy. I mean, if you saw monkey tail skinks interacting, it's like watching like primates. Like they're like little koalas. They like the babies sit on the back and the mother's back for, you know, like the first like 6 months to a year. And then they truly like really never leave each other's sides for like their entire life. It's really adorable. But yeah, my 2 skinks, I had Marty for a while, and then I ended up getting a female little cucumber. And they're like inseparable. They sit in their cork tube, they cuddle up with each other. It's actually really cool.
Now those, they eat like pothos, right? I mean,
they do eat pothos. So anytime I go to like Jewel or Home Depot, or Jewel is our grocery store in here, but or the Jewels as they say in Chicago, but
Jewel.
Yeah, the Jewels. Or they like Lakeshore Drive. They go, oh yeah, going on the drive. Never heard of that before?
No.
Anything with like boulevard. Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's true Chicagoan, but you don't hear that all too often. But at Jewel Osco, which is our grocery store, or Home Depot or whatever, any nursery, I'll grab, you know, a big pot of pothos, which is normally like $10, and it feeds them for like 2 weeks. You know, obviously I'll supplement them with like a Missouri tortoise diet or herbivore diet. And, you know, I give them the mixed greens and whatnot, but they go insane. Like when I put the pothos in there, Q sits in there for like 2 days straight, doesn't eat anything, and she just lays inside of the pothos. Like she loves being in there. And I don't know if that's because I don't know the origins of where Cucumber came from. I know where Marty is from the wild, but it almost makes me feel like I'm like giving them a piece of home when I do put the pothos in there, because they love it so much. So it is cool that they get to eat that stuff.
Yeah. Now, are those, I mean, animals that you need to use like UVB on them, or?
I do. I do put UVB on them. They are arboreal species, so you would, you know, just assuming because they're arboreal that they do come in contact with direct sunlight. So I do put a UVB on them, and I've got a spotlight for them too. So, and they seem to do, you know, fairly well. I do mist them, you know, on a regular basis. They've got a big water dish. Problem with them is that a lot of them will go to the bathroom in their water. But from what I've heard from another hobbyist is that they do that because they actually they eat their feces, and they like to drink their wasted water. But it helps like the flora in their stomach. And a lot of times you'll see like the females or the babies eating their feet, or the mothers like poop. And that helps like, you know, develop their digestion and their stomach flora.
So my first impression would be, you know, change that water. So are you not, do you let it
on purpose?
Yeah. Do you let it sit for a little bit?
I'll let it go for like a day or two. But I generally, because it's in my bedroom too, it does tend to smell. So I will let it go for like a day. But other than that, it's like you kind of have to, you know, do what they like. I mean, because they're doing it for a reason. It's not like they're accidentally doing that. So, but I will mist them too. So they do get a lot of their water from misting. I'd probably be a little bit more convenient if I had like a mister or like a misting system on them, but, or one of those, you ever seen the water fountains, the reptile water fountains?
I saw like this thing that Hyde Park had.
I don't know if it's something.
But it was more like it was a rainmaker.
No, this is like it looks like one of those little fluval filters, but it's a self-containing. It just recycles water inside of it. And
like for chameleons to drink out of?
Right. Yeah, I use that for my. We've got one for our panther chameleon, Elton John, and we've got our frilled dragon has one, Frilly, and she. I mean, it's weird. Like she'll drink when it's misted on her, but like you have to like point her in the direction. It's like I don't know what's wrong with her, but she's just goofy like that, and so you have to like literally point her in the direction of water. So, but if she sees a hornworm, she goes running.
Oh, you taught me like you're telling me not to ask.
No.
Oh, I bet the frilled dragon is a big like showstopper.
Yes and no. I mean, the thing about a frilled dragon is that in order for people to get that like showstopper vibe from it, it has to frill, and she's just really chill. So, like when I pick her up out of the cage, like sometimes she doesn't see me and she'll kind of give me a little frill, or when she's really excited for like food, she'll kind of do a little frill. Which is freaking adorable. But other than that, she's just she's just really relaxed and her frill stays down. So you almost have to like kind of like fluff up her frill with your fingers just to show people like this is like her skin. Like she does have a big frill. And normally when you say the Jurassic Park dinosaur that spits acid on Newman, people are like, oh my God. But yeah, people do love her when we bring her to shows, and she sits very well on her branches that are set up in displays and stuff. So people do enjoy the frilled dragon.
Okay, total non-snake question.
Yeah.
But do you feel like the longer you have this business, you become like the party planner side comes out in you more? Do you like find yourself finding more like
entertainment
different
type
ways
of thing,
or like a theme, or like you brought up Jurassic Park, so that's what made me think about, like, do you find yourself coming up with more? I don't know how to phrase it. You know what I'm trying to say?
No,
like,
I know what you're talking about. When you keep a business like this, you tend to, when you're looking for business, we're not at that point yet where we have to just like stop and just wait by the phone and be like, oh, okay, like, we'll just wait for people to call us. Like, we're still actively, pursuing, different events and different, schools, libraries and whatnot. But I'll look around for like when Jurassic World 2 came out. I was like, oh, what would be cool if like, if a theater was having an event like for the premiere. And so we found, there's like it's called Hollywood Palm or Hollywood Boulevard, and they were doing something. So they were like, oh, that'd be great. And so they paid us to come out for their Jurassic Park event. So we got to, take a couple photos with the reptiles by the Jurassic Park Jeep and whatnot. And a lot of people, okay, so I get this a lot where people say I look like Chris Pratt. And so people thought that, like, when I was outside of the theater as they were going in to see this new movie, they're like, wait a second. So they thought that they're on like a candid camera thing, like, wait, are you? And I'm like, oh my God, like, as flattering as this is, no, like, why would I be here in Chicago, waiting for you guys to go into the theater? But it was almost like one of those candid camera moments, which I thought was hilarious. But is that kind of what you were looking at, or?
Yeah, ish, but or more, I was thinking,
like Jurassic Park themed birthday party.
Yeah. Like when you do birthday
right.
parties, you're thinking about like, okay, how am I going to present these animals, or like,
right.
What are my like what am I going to say for it?
Right.
So, thinking, oh, what's my theme for this birthday?
Depending on
kind of thing like that.
Crowd.
Yeah.
So on our, I don't know if I have it specifically on our website, but we do. So in that, I guess in that theme, when we do see that like Jurassic Park is coming out with a new movie, or the Jungle Book is coming out with a new movie, or, Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts is a great example. We're doing a setup and display next month, and people are like, hey, we're doing this. What could you provide us? Like, and so we're like, oh, well, we've got a tailless whip scorpion, which so and so professor used to perform the dark arts spell or something. I forget the wording. Mike knows it by hand. Or we've got Neville Longbottom's toad, Trevor. The smooth-sided toads are the same toad that Neville Longbottom had in the movies. Or we've got a reticulated python, which was why can't I think of Voldemort's snake's name?
You're asking the wrong people,
right? But still, we've got all those species that are highlighted in the movies. Or same thing with like Jurassic Park. We've got the frilled dragon, so people make the connection between the frilled dragon and the Dilophosaurus. And so, but yeah, we do. When people do ask us like, hey, we're doing this type of event, what could you offer us? We do try to highlight those aspects, not necessarily as a package deal on our website. It's more of what we can offer them.
So Ryan in the chat, Nagini. Is that
Nagini,
the name?
There we go. Yep, Nagini. I didn't want to say it because I think I was gonna. It's the name in my head sounded like the name of the panther in Jungle Book, and I didn't think that was correct. But which I think is, it's Bagheera. That's not even with an N. Bagheera. Okay. Whatever.
All these very, very foreign names I can't keep track of, but so I mean, finding when you go to birthday parties and stuff and go to schools. I mean, are a lot of your like future shows off of, people that you find at this birthday party, or at, how are you getting, what the hell do you call that?
Just advertisement, getting work, putting yourself out there. the best way that we found is literally just getting out and going and having a setup and display somewhere. So this kind of answers your question from the beginning, like, hey, how do I start showing these animals or whatnot? But one of the first things we did was we joined our local Chamber of Commerce. And, you know, you don't have to have a business license, or we don't have a business license. This is just kind of a hobby for us still. But the Chamber of Commerce had like a flea market. They're like, hey, you know, on Sunday morning, we're going to have, you know, a bunch of vendors, whatever. So we bought a table and we just did a setup and display. We say, hey, we're not selling anything, but we're trying to advertise our company. And, you know, obviously people bring their kids after church to these flea markets and whatever. So, you know, we got business from there, and that actually kind of helped us reach out. And, you know, we actually got an employee from something like that. Like his mom was at the show and was like, oh, my son loves this stuff. And he's 16 years old. He'd love to help you guys out. So, you know, that was a great way for us to get a new employee and a good friend at that too. But yeah, setup and displays, finding events and festivals and things like that just to get the exposure is huge, because people can see what you're doing, and they can you know, they can get an experience from you, and that experience lasts longer than seeing a Facebook ad or a billboard or, you know, whatever. So.
And I mean, where do you picture this all going? Because obviously you said that you're not full-time doing it now, but I mean, would you want to be full-time? Well, I know you said no, but I mean, like, yeah, then what's the end goal with
the? So I always surprise myself with the goals that I set, and as of right now, if I'm not, sometimes I don't set those goals because I'm afraid that I will achieve them, and it's just more of a confidence issue, I guess. But at this point, I'd like it just to be a side career, and I think the next hurdle would be, again, I'm not engaged or anything, but I have a long-term girlfriend, but, you know, trying to find that balance with having a family. So I don't know necessarily know if I want to do this full time prior to starting a family, because I don't know how my life is going to change prior to that. So I think that is a big concern moving forward. Is, all right, well, I don't want to neglect time with my family, because this can take up quite a bit of time, and I want to see where that goes first. So, you know, obviously this is going to keep on growing with the time that we're putting into it. But until then, you know, eventually it'd be cool to open up a shop, or open up some type of, you know, reptarium, like, you know, what Barchix doing right now, and just, you know, letting people come in and see your collection. I mean, it's fun when you get to, you know, go from place to place, but I think it'd be even cooler to set up some really cool, you know, professional setups for people to come visit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that, like, we all have a little piece of the fact that, like, we want not only to be able to educate, but also to have somewhere where people can come and look at all your It's like a weird, like, childish almost. Like, look at all my cool stuff. I want you to love it as much as I do, type of thing.
Right. And again, you know, people are like, oh, you know, you know, they're showboating or whatever. It's like, no, I'm just proud of what I do. Like, I love this stuff, and I love sharing my passion with everything else. I feel like that's a phrase that is oversaid, and I roll my eyes anytime I say
a P word.
Right, the passion. Oh my God, I have a passion. Okay, I'm Jay Brewer. I'm Brian Burch. But it's like, or living the dream, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's like, really, I mean, when you love what you do, it's like, it's hard not to show it, and it's hard not to talk about it. So, you know, I think that's what we're all doing, whether it's, you know, it's a form of breeding, or, you know, doing reptile shows with education, or, you know, stuff like that.
So obviously, I mean, a lot of things are happening on weekends with things like education shows, like birthday parties. And you're talking about, like, family time. So obviously, like, she will go to reptile shows with me on, you know, a Saturday or so. So does your girlfriend partake at all?
Yeah. There, you know, there'll be weekends where she works every other Saturday or every other weekend. So, you know, most of the time she'll be working anyways. But yeah, I mean, when we do have, like, longer setup and displays, like for Reptile Fest and stuff, she will come out and she'll hang out, and, you know, it's a good time. I mean, going to those big setup and displays, it's like you're hanging out with family. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, especially in the show circuit too. setting up and, going to the Tinley Park show, or, you're saying the White Plains show or Hamburg. A lot of those people, they see each other, every other weekend or, once a month. So it's nice getting out and to hang out and you talk hobby and, you get to just sit and relax and do what you love.
Yeah. I think we find ourselves now just going to the show just to hang out with friends that we don't see otherwise.
Right.
I don't find as much interest going to shows if we don't know anyone.
Yeah.
It's like the vice versa of like me taking him shopping, and I'll like walk around something 3 times and he's just sitting there like, when are we going to leave? Yeah. And that's how it is at a reptile show. He has to walk around at least like 4 times, and I'm like, didn't you see this already? Like, also, it's 90% ball pythons, so why have we been here for 6 hours? Like,
you're looking for something that you missed that could have been on that ball python table,
and you see something new every time.
Right.
There's also no seats. At least when I take you shopping, you can sit down somewhere. There's no seats. It's usually super packed, and I'm like, I don't care about any of this.
But usually we're just hanging out with our friends.
But if there's friends, it's different. Like I did say, or a couple weeks ago, I was like, no, we're not going to Hamburg this month. Like, everyone says it's cold. It's like not fun. Also, Hamburg is like disgusting. But we have our friend Matt.
Being pretty blunt.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt has a really comfy chair behind his booth. I'm going to go sit there while you walk around, and I pretend like I can talk about blood pythons.
There you go.
Short tails, and there you go.
Yeah, it's like there's...
What are the big... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I totally just cut you off. What are the big shows, obviously, other than Tinley? I know Tinley, but like, I feel like that has a shadow on any other show.
What's the Scott's All Animal Expo is a thing?
Yeah, that's the... I don't really have much to say about that show.
It looks like your version of Hamburg, but with mammals and stuff.
Again, I don't like saying anything bad about it. I haven't gone to the All Animal Expo in quite some time. I mean, it's definitely been years. But that's bi-monthly or bi-weekly?
Really?
Yeah, it's like every 2 weeks, and he's got...
Holy shit.
Yeah. But the other big show that people go to, there's like a cold-blooded expo that comes through once a year, or maybe twice a year. And I haven't been to that one, but apparently people say it's all right. But the other really big one, other than Tinley Park, would be Sewer Fest, and that's run by Shane, the Zoo Med representative. He runs that, and that is twice a year, and that's a really nice show up in there.
So I have heard that, and do you know what's behind that name?
Sewerfest? It's like the southern Wisconsin something fest. Reptile Fest.
So it's an abbreviation of sorts.
Yeah, it's an abbreviation fest. Yeah, it's not like it's like in the sewers or something.
Oh yeah,
it's like the southern Wisconsin reptile amphibian fest. I don't know.
Because I was like, yeah, that's like a cool name, but I don't think everyone would find it cool.
Yeah, Sewerfest. Yeah, anytime Sewerfest is happening, it's a weekend that we're like bogged down with shows, and so we have a lot of friends that go to it, and we'd love to go, but we're just unable to. So we're gonna have to carve out some time this year to try and get to it.
And now you just go to Tinley and you just attend or walk around and whatnot?
We've been the last couple years. We share a table with one of our buddies who's a rodent distributor. Last year I sold most of my king snakes there. Mike sells all of his inverts, so he sells his hissing cockroaches, his isopods, springtails. What else was he selling? Assassin bugs, which are like, I call them the. Have you guys seen the movie Tremors?
Mm-mm.
I have.
Okay, you ever seen the one? It's like the second or third with the ass blasters. No. Well, it's basically like Tremors with legs that shoot fire out of their butt, and they can fly. And so these assassin bugs look like ass blasters. And he sells those too, and whatever other inverts he's messing around with at that time. But yeah, he does well. He hit it really well too, because he was just breeding something that he loved. And this last year, you guys know what isopods are going for these days? Like, some of them are like $10 a piece for something like that's the size of your fingernail, and you will never see. They're underground the whole time. They're eating, the substrate in your tanks. But they're, he has these giant canyon isopods, and I think for like a dozen of them, he was selling for like 20-30 bucks or something. And I'm like, how do you even know you're selling them? You're selling dirt, Like I laughed at him when he first bought them. Geez, he's been keeping these for forever. But when his first one, he had like a little Dixie cup, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got these isopods," and I'm like, "Dude, someone just sold you dirt. You just lost $7 of your money. Like, you're an idiot." And he has these huge 55-gallon totes full of isopods now that he wholesales out to big distributors, and he sells them at the Tinley show. So
you would be surprised.
We started selling springtails, and I feel that way sometimes. And I'm like, I know they're in there because I saw him pour it in. But I was buying it, like, that just looks like charcoal. Like,
no, there's so many cool isopods. It sounds crazy, but there's like orange ones. There's white and black zebra ones. There's amazing different isopods that you would never ever imagine, and they're fucking cool in their own right. Like all different colors and whatnot.
Mike really got on a trip when there's this like invertebrates auction page that he's on, and he was buying a bunch of really cool isopods, and he found these like they're like emerald dung beetles or something, and I had to go pick them up from the post office one day. And he's like, yeah, obviously when you get a package with live animals, you want to open it up, make sure they're cool. So I opened up these packages, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these look like jewels. Like they look like little emerald jewels. And I'm like, dude, these are cool. He's like, oh yeah, that's awesome, whatever. I didn't know anything about them. And all of a sudden they start taking off. He had like 3 dozen of these things, and they're all flying in my car as I'm driving. I'm like, oh my God. It was insane. We ended up getting them all. I think 1 or 2 got loose, but don't tell the DNR that. But I don't know. I think they're native to the United States. I'm not sure. But he gets a lot of really cool inverts that I'm like, oh man, that might not be, so cool or whatever. But then he always kind of shows me up. He's like, no, these are cool. And they're really awesome. They're easy to breed. I'm like, oh, nice. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing about like isopods. And I mean, obviously with the springtails, we don't do anything. We just, I throw rice in there and just let them be. And they're like, I open it up and it's like firecrackers coming off. They're all jumping up and white things going crazy. And I was like, I got to sell these.
Yeah.
I need to get rid of some of these but people want them.
It works. I wish, I feel like we should market it more so people know. But I also feel stupid marketing half charcoal. Like, I don't know. It just feels weird because they're so tiny.
Yeah.
I feel like when people come to shows, when they're not going to think about coming to us for springtails. They're going to go to these other people who do the bugs wholly first. But I want them to come to us because we're doing them.
But I mean, it's nice just to have something on the table that, I mean, there's only still a few people that have them, and I don't have to do anything.
They're getting pretty popular, I think, just because of the necessity of them. But
yeah, I think we're still a little bit behind. Like in Pennsylvania, I don't know many people there's no real dart frog tables or anything at the shows. I mean, which is kind of odd because in Texas, I felt like there was a lot. At Tinley, obviously, there's a shit ton of dart frog people and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. It feels like there's not much going on here in that world. So,
I know one of the original spots where the NARBC was Philadelphia. That was one of their first. That was one of their first stops, and I don't think there was much of a showing out there. That's why, and I don't know, maybe it could have been a venue.
From what Brian said, I heard it didn't, it just didn't make money. It just, the East Coast is a little bit too expensive, I guess, to throw that big of a show.
Yeah, there's a lot of fish shows out there. There's something called the Aquatic Experience that used to be here in Chicago, but now has moved over to Philadelphia. For the next, I think, 4 or 5 years. They'll be over there, then they'll jump back to Chicago. But that's a really cool one. You'll see a lot of terrarium people out there. I know that Vivarium, oh man, what is their name? I follow them on Instagram. But they had a really cool setup and display for the Aquatic Experience. They've got sea lions at the show. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a mobile show that's once a year, but they've got all these really cool freshwater tanks, saltwater, terrarium designers, and even sea lions. So.
Damn, now I want to go. I know you won't want to go, but
it's in October.
I just think
Or
it's
November.
crazy how many other shows are out there,
Yeah,
It's
we're
fun to
in
go
our
to different.
bubble, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to go to different stuff. You'll see, like that's the thing. Like we were approached to go to that aquatic experience or to event there because they wanted something different. They wanted reptiles, so we brought all of our like aquatic reptiles. So we brought a lot of amphibians. We brought like our mata, our diamondback terrapin, our alligator snapper, our green anaconda, our basilisk. So a lot of these animals are water and or like water or aquatic species. So we just brought a lot of those animals to kind of show to people that it doesn't just stop at maybe water inverts and fish. It's everything from turtles to snakes and lizards.
And there's just people showing stuff off.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And we definitely brought like some of our Burmese pythons and different things for people to interact with and to hold.
That's cool. So do you see Chicago as your forever place?
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate for what I love, but I definitely have like plans to have like a building and a greenhouse attached to it because I'm a big horticulturist. I love planting and different things. And but yeah, I definitely am trying to accommodate for
all the things that come with Chicago.
Isn't that so weird? There's so many of us that live, whether it's the Northeast, the Midwest. I mean, most of the country. I mean, we're just fighting upstream.
I wish I could.
Constantly.
I mean, that's our struggle. I want to live in New Orleans, but he tells me no because of the snakes.
Well, because
there are a lot of snakes.
But if I had a facility, I would just be afraid that it would flood. But also the weather would be great.
But you always talk maybe the humidity's too high.
No, not necessarily.
Well, I think his idea of flooding is exacerbated.
I don't know. I think history would go against you on that one.
Yeah, that's true.
There's been one big flood in my life.
Yeah, but if you're in Louisiana, like but all the time you have your streets flooding and stuff like that all the time and heavy. I don't know. I just don't want to fuck with it. I would rather be somewhere where I know I'm going to be dry, high and dry.
Yeah, I'm in a spot here in Chicago where, we're just in like suburbia of Chicagoland. So we're in an area that like hasn't seen a tornado in like 100 years. So it's like we're in an area but 30 minutes south of us, they get tornadoes all the time. So it's crazy that like we're in a spot, it doesn't flood. Yeah, we get snow, but I mean, who doesn't here in the Midwest? And we just don't get any tornadoes. So I mean, our weather is kind of perfect for where you live. No floods, no tornadoes, and we're good.
Yeah, as long as you can control what's inside. I mean, you certainly can't control what's outside.
Sure, but yeah, we're in a good spot where there's no natural disasters lurking around every corner. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've totally kept you past your time, but I have one last non-snake related question.
Sure.
Do you preach deep dish?
Deep dish? I don't preach it, but I do enjoy it. So, I mean, again, everyone's got their preferences. Again, I'm not going to knock you if you don't like deep dish, but deep dish, I mean, you're missing out if you don't. So, amazing.
This one, we're only allowed to get thin pizza in this house, but he's also from New York, so I get it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, New York, I as a Chicagoan, I have had New York pizza, and it's good. I mean, again, it's not like home, but it's good. I mean, it's home away from home. It's pretty good pizza.
Well, I mean, you could have a whole meal as like one slice of your pizza, so that is a benefit. Like I could eat a whole pie of thin slice, but I can't eat.
That's true. I mean, I'm 250 pounds, so I mean, I could attack quite a bit of that pizza for deep dish, but it's so good. Do I have a favorite? No, but if there's deep dish on the table, it's going down. Maybe Giordano's would probably be the best. So, do you guys? Well, so I have a confession, Joe. I did see you at Tinley this October. It was before the show. And I didn't approach you, but I heard your voice before I saw you. And I was like, wait a second. I know this. I know that person. And so I looked and you were talking to, oh man, it's the guy on his banner. It's might be a mandarin rat snake or
Oh, Larry Keller.
Sure, yeah. And I was like, oh, he's deep in conversation. Like, you don't even know me, so I'm not even gonna like bug you or anything. But I'm like, oh, that's like from the Joe. That's Joe. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. But it was like before the show on, I don't know, Friday. No, or I was maybe either set up on Friday or before the show Saturday morning. That you were talking to him, and I was like, nah, I won't go say anything. But I have seen you in person. I just didn't go up.
You should have said something because, like, I don't know, it's not to the point where like there's not so many people saying anything to me that I'm like, this is weird. It's like I appreciate that. It's like I appreciate the fact that like there's people out there, you know, like it's still exciting. So
yeah, I was again in October. I can't really like hang out much because we are going to the haunted houses right away. And we are like we're trying to set up our table, and then I'm running to the haunted houses.
Oh, that sucks. Actually, yeah.
October I don't get to hang out, and in March, this is my first year I get to. My brother was a Big Ten wrestler, and so you wrestled for the University of Illinois. So in March, that's like national season, Big Ten championship. So it's like we were always on the go, traveling throughout the United States, following him wrestle. So. This is the first year that I get to like hang out. I get to have a St. Patrick's Day in Chicago, which is always awesome. But I actually get to like enjoy my friends and reptile family over at the Tinley show. So, which I'm only like 5 minutes away. So it's great to have a show so close. It's such an amazing place to be.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're all the way in Philly, you can only go to the October Tinley show. You got to pick one.
Yeah, that's true. So. But yeah, I mean, definitely. Are you planning on coming out next year or this year?
In October, yeah.
If you do, I know. I mean, at night is like when everyone hangs out and stuff like that. But if you guys want to go to the haunted houses, let me know, and like you guys can.
Once again, the killjoy of this all.
But yeah, I mean, if you guys want to come out, I mean,
singular will do it.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Can I be like in the room and watching through it?
I'll give you a behind the scenes tour, so you don't have to go through, but you can hang out. And these haunted houses are, again, they're the best in Chicago, which is saying a lot because it's Chicago's haunt industry is just like the reptile industry. You've got a lot of greats in Chicagoland. But
industry.
There's a lot of haunters out there. That might be another podcast, but it's a very cool and very competitive industry, very cool industry. But if you guys want, you're more than welcome to stop by and hang out for the night and get to see what I get to do there.
Carly too, but
people in their chat are tagging along.
Yeah, but if you look it up, like Hell's Gate, if you make it through and you find the key in the basement, you get your money back. Like that's how like intense this is.
Well, I know someone who, gives animals there, so maybe we can get some hands.
That's what I'm saying. So if you guys want to come out, I mean, these are, some of the best in the nation. So,
dude, if we get our money back, we'll find that fucking key.
That's what I was saying.
No, you guys won't be paying to get in. That's what I'm saying. But I'm saying you guys will have a good time with it.
We'll leave that to everyone else.
I guess. I still want to find the key,
I
though.
know, just the excitement of it.
It'll be a good time.
Oh gosh. Colin, if people want to reach out to you, how should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, just on Facebook. I mean, you can find me at Colin Langenderfer on Facebook, but you can also follow my company on Crosstown Exotics, and that's on Facebook, Crosstown_Exotics on Instagram. And we just started up a YouTube channel, which has been kind of an interesting feat because it's weird talking into a camera when normally I'm talking to an audience about animals. So that's it's slowly but surely starting up. So we definitely appreciate a follow on our YouTube channel.
Sweet. What do we got for us?
Why can't you just say it?
All right, PortCityPythons.com, Port City Pythons on Instagram, Port City Pythons everywhere else. From the Ground Up podcast.
And to say it one more time, because I want to speak it into existence through the what's it called? 6 degrees of separation, 7 degrees of separation.
You're just asking for handouts now.
If anyone who knows anyone who has some space at a table at White Plains.
Yeah, we'd be willing to buy a table off anyone just if you guys got the spot. Because if people don't know, like a lot of the shows around here, White Plains, Hamburg, I mean, it's pretty much you get a table, you maintain that table, you never let it go because
it's that hard to get back in.
Yeah, it's hard to get in and it's hard to, it's something that you don't give up. So
you only need a fourth of a table.
And we're lucky to have done it once, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, but
so thanks, Tim. Shout out.
So I want to do it.
What? Oh yeah, she wasn't there for the last White Plains show, so.
Yes.
And we'll probably talk a little bit about shows. You mentioned maybe doing a show about shows.
I was about to say that. Let's just do
show
it.
about our show. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Or no, I'm recording a podcast either Wednesday or Thursday. A different podcast. Oh, check me out on the Scarfo Show podcast at some point. So shout out. That'll probably be more business and talking about like my podcasting business and stuff. So you guys probably won't care.
Well, whatever day you're not doing that, we will do a little mini episode basically recapping the Oak show we just did.
Yeah, because I feel like this one, even though we did a lot worse than last show, we have more to talk about in a way.
Yeah, and let me preface it. It's not going to all be positive. We're trying to be positive this time. It's not going to be positive, but it's just going to be...
No, the whole experience was very positive.
No, but some of the things I'm going to say are not.
Well, that's just you in a nutshell, eh?
Cool. Thanks. Again, terrible outro. But, Colin, thank you so much for being on and spending 2 hours in your basement.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's the haunted house that I'm currently in right now. So
I mean, glad nothing, is flying in the background or anything.
Well, thank you everyone for listening out there. Thank you for everyone in the chat for hanging out. And we will catch you whenever we're going to do that little mini show that we're doing. Later, guys.